HO Talk Show. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I to the ism, H to the Izzo Talk Show, and Razor up here turning knobs like something ain't working. It's still, we good, Razor?
Sabotage.
We good, homie?
Yeah, I think so. I think.
Razor, you're not giving me a lot of confidence.
Man. Well, I wasn't. She wasn't telling me if it was good or not, so I didn't want to give you no false hope.
Okay, all right, I feel you. Well, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and I must say that is a good idea because we are live and in effect with our good brother, good friend of Wright Group Counseling. Yet another great community resource for us by us for this mental health awareness month of May. None other than Nick Wright, Mr. Wright. How you been, man? Good afternoon.
Hey, good to see you all. Appreciate you all having me.
Of course.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Now, for those that don't know, I called Nick one day. Trying to, like trying to get the brother for a quick lunch or something, because he and I catch up every now and then. He said, "Man, I ain't there no more." I'm like, so Nick tried to run away from me, y'all, but I still tracked him down, and thankfully that he still obliged getting on these radio airwaves.
Where's he at now?
I mean, I ain't putting the man business out. He could tell us.
So I'm in the Virginia area, so I'm in Alexandria, but our practice is still virtual, still part of Central Virginia Clinicians of Color Network. Still doing a lot of work in Charlottesville related to mental health, and I don't know, Charlottesville did a lot for me and continues to do a lot for me, and so I continue to try to give back and donate and do whatever I can.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. Much obliged, man. Much appreciated for sure, man. So this May 2025. So Nick, I don't know if you know, but last live show we had the good brother Gene Cash on here.
Oh, great. That's one of my mentors.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Speaking of clinicians of color and all that, I know you guys work very, very well together, providing mental health resources, to the people. And so I'm gonna ask you just like we asked him. It is 2025. It is yet another month that has been set aside, designated for mental health awareness. So when you think about where we are right now, May 2025, what is on the agenda? What are the initiatives that Wright Group Counseling is sharing with people?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Really for 2025 is really consistency. In terms of like the business model, just continue to be consistent, show up, give people that quality care that you would want for your family, and just give that next level customer service and understanding. As it relates to just individuals working on their own mental health, I tell them to take time for themselves. Enjoy the journey. That's the big thing for 2025. Enjoy the journey. A lot of times life can be stressful. We have all these things coming, bills, social media, jobs, the administration right now. And so, I encourage you to fight the things that you can fight, but also enjoy the journey. So whether that's a scoop of ice cream before you go to bed or listening to IMHO Talk Show.
Hey, there we go.
Just enjoy the journey along the way. I'd rather go to war with someone and we lose the fight and someone that's going to run away. And so I encourage you to fight while you can. I'd rather you pace yourself versus just burning out.
Good word.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Do I have an option? Nah, lay it on me, Razor. I welcome it.
Hey, when it comes to the state of our communities, right, regardless of color, do you feel that some people are using mental health as an excuse to not really fix themselves?
Yeah, so if they have like a concrete mindset versus a growth mindset, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I think people can weaponize it. I think some people use it as a trigger word. They know some of the words, they manipulate certain situations to get out of things. But it's like, what are we doing to become better? It's good to identify your triggers. Oh, I'm triggered. Okay, that's good. Now, what is your trigger response? What is your trauma response when you are triggered? And then on top of that, if you know that it's a negative trauma response, what are you doing differently to change that. So if it's negative self-talk is your automatic trauma response when you're triggered, what are you doing to try to talk back, combat that? So if you say something negative, say two positives to try to combat that negative energy that you bring upon yourself or that others bring towards you. And so, yes, short answer, people definitely weaponize it. But I think identifying that you have these traumas, I think that's kind of where a counselor comes through, or just someone that supports you. They kind of help you through your journey.
Yeah. So if I may, Charles, really that was a great question, Razor. Thank you for that. And I want to piggyback off of it a little bit, because in the last couple of weeks, I was fortunate enough to hear something that kind of opened up my thought process to it in terms of mental health. And so someone was explaining an experience that they had when they were younger. And the person that they were sharing with said, "Oh my God, that must have been so traumatizing." And the response from that person was, "Not everything is trauma."
True that.
Yeah, that's so valid. You're absolutely right. Not everything
like
is
trauma.
Right.
Sometimes you got to get back on defense.
So so great point. Let me pose this way. I read an article not too long ago, y'all, where it was talking about how I think it's like, what's the last generation? Not millennials. Is that millennials the last one?
X,
or maybe it's the ones after 2000.
The two after 2000.
What is it?
I don't know. Elemental PQ. What? I
don't know. But anyway, but what it was is like the current generation, right? Like the young generation that's in the workforce. So folks that are in their like 20s.
Gen Z.
Is that Gen Z? Okay, maybe it's Gen Z. Yeah. Okay, Gen Z. My bad. So is that there is an alarming rate of layoffs and folks getting fired based on like job productivity and whatnot, right? So one of the things in the article that it's talking about is that there is a generation of wellness, so to speak, right? And when, of course, wellness in general, has a good connotation, right? So you want to take care of your wellness, especially like your mental wellness and health and wellness, right? But what it touches on, though, is to the point we all been making of now we have folks who take a lot of mental health breaks, right? Like that's also a norm and whatnot. And so with the findings is that it is being abused, right? And so like it just makes me wonder, like, how do we correct that trajectory, though, Nick, of like where you find that work-life balance of taking serious that, I have a job that gets hard sometimes, right? Sometimes work is work. Right. But then I also need to be respectful of when I really do need a break. I need people to be respectful of when I feel like that I'm like too taxed to the max, and for us not to abuse that which we're talking about.
In your response, Nick, if you could expand on what I said, though.
I'm sorry.
Because I just think it's a key. There's a few things that come across in our show that I believe are keys to our listening audience. I think it's a key. And so the distinction between what is traumatizing and what we need to seek help with and what isn't and is survivable.
Yeah, that's okay. That's an interesting question. I think everything isn't trauma. I think that the idea that people are, I guess, abusing it. Sure, I think that happens, but I think it's like sometimes we need to challenge back, especially if, corporations do the research in terms of like who is saying that people are abusing it and in what way are they abusing it? Because I feel like there's some companies that abuse the employees. I get a lot of people for different FMLA situations where they have over like 400 hours of sick leave, and the company won't let them take off to even just like show up to their kids' school for dad lunch day. If they take off, they get a point. And so when you're looking at a corporation that has like a 3-point system, and then you're put on a corrective action plan, it's you know, you're kind of putting people in a certain situation. This is somebody that's been on the job, we'll say 30 plus years at this corporation. And so I think it can go both ways. People can abuse a vehicle, but that doesn't stop us from still driving. Like I think the good outweighs the bad. And so I would kind of challenge that article, and I would continue to challenge, you know, some of those people, encourage them, right? In terms of increasing their performance, you can challenge some of those concrete thinking processes and encouraging them to have a growth mindset. Okay, this is a barrier for you. If they acknowledge it as a barrier, let's acknowledge it as a barrier, but what are we going to do to kind of help them move through it? How do we progress? And they might not progress at the speed that you want,
right?
But I think with repetition, environment, the right motivation, I mean, things can change. I know you've been around basketball, and there's a difference between a coach that is just yelling nonstop at the kids and expecting them to perform better. What are you doing? What are you thinking? Come on, are you this? Are you that? Versus a coach that's like, yo, good job, but next time I want you to swing left instead of going right. And so sometimes people learn differently. And then in terms of like navigating Max's kind of idea of trauma, not everything is trauma and what we need to seek help with. That's kind of a heavy question, because not everything is trauma. Somebody falls on the ground, they get back up. But sometimes if someone, all right, so in order for something to be considered, like there's different levels of trauma. Like you have PTSD, you have primary, you have tertiary trauma. And so a lot of things could be deemed trauma. You're right. However, what is our end goal? What is our desired outcome? And so, yes, this might be traumatic for you, but we can't allow it to stop you from moving forward. If we wanted to, we could deem a lot of things trauma, but it's not going to be enough to help you get it like a disability check, right? Like, because it doesn't qualify and it doesn't stop you from moving forward. Now, you might have some hindrances and you might have some different socioeconomical things that are in the way, not just your own mental, like whether it's finances, it's job stability, all these different things. But we can try to navigate that and work on it together. But I mean, we're not necessarily in a place to say if someone's experiencing trauma, I can't say that that's not their trauma. I can say you having trauma symptoms, you're having a bad day, you're frustrated, you're irritated. But for it to be trauma, it has to be debilitating. And it has to be something that really just sticks with you or has intrusive thoughts, or it might, if you're sleeping and it just impedes upon your everyday life. I think those are some of the traumas that exist and are the ones that are more so highlighted.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered your question.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the.
This killing me. This killing me.
Tell me, Razor.
Because I mean, it's just I'm gonna speak my truth and I'm gonna fall on my sword. I'm wondering when Charles asked about the unemployment or people getting fired, if it has a lot to do with males than females, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
I would be, if I was a gambling man, I would say it would apply more to the males, right? And it, in my humble opinion, it's, if you look at the people that's getting fired, a lot of it probably has to do with unsteady households. And it's not popular for you to have a manly male come up underneath you as a young child. You know, when I hear women talk about their sons and he can wash clothes and he can cook and he can clean, he can do, you know, they tell me how he knows how to be a great woman, but he doesn't know how to be a man. So then there are boys from my time of cutting hair 20 some years and just listening to people talk, they give so many excuses as to why the boys don't have to be tough. right? They don't have to dig in. They don't have to be what would be considered that could lead a man. They're babied, right? And they give up. So then essentially they're becoming something that they were not meant to be from their origin. So then when you start saying, Charles, that like they get fired because they don't like to do the uncomfortable stuff, somebody raised their voice too much at them, everything has to do with how they're being treated in the home. And that resonates over to the employment world. Like they don't like the way something is done to them if it's, like a person is within eyesight or voice range. If it's typing on like the game systems, they can cuss each other and tell everything, all kind of crazy stuff. And this, I've watched this happen over the course of like 20 some years. You know what I'm saying? From cutting hair and listening to people's stories. So when I'm hearing what Max said, that everything isn't trauma, it isn't. But at the same time, the atmosphere that was built inside the home to where order, leadership, and everything cannot really be administered properly, then you're left with the symptom of having a generation, X gen, whatever y'all called it, that literally does not have the ability to push through something hard and without falling apart themselves. And in Razor talking, the worst thing that generation that y'all are describing can do is have children. Because that child cannot count on them, because the only thing that they can do, only thing that they know how to do, in my humble opinion, is shut down. Get angry, shut down, run off, close themselves in the closet, bathroom, whatever their symptom, how they handle like controversy or something. And it's because the households are unstable. And I think that men have done a bad job, even though the majority of houses have combined families.
So you're talking about the way, like maybe
I think the households.
You're talking about the way somebody is brought up, not necessarily their current, because we're talking about adults.
Yeah. Like, well, they were once children.
Living on, okay.
Those adults were once children,
yeah.
Right? And we tend to look at an age saying that you're an adult now. But if you were to write out who they really are and don't put no names or no genders, and then ask a person who did not know who you were talking about to read it and put the age of the person on here, I'm willing to bet most people would pick that child was a lot younger than the person that somebody's talking about. So when you go onto an entrepreneur's place, that my money, my livelihood is attached to you doing what I say do, or you figuring out, or you not making mistakes, or you whatever it is, and then they get talked to a certain way, then the first thing that they normally do is run home and look for the pampering. And then they don't have to go back out. You ain't got to put up with that. And you ain't got all these type of things. And then they're being taken care of. So remember the movie Baby Boy? What Tyrese kept doing? You know what I'm saying? We have that so prevalent. But the problem is, the second that you start talking about children and the way people conduct their children now, we have a gender group that immediately gets in an uproar because they know they're the ones that's been in control of the household for about the past 25 years.
That's
just Razor's opinion.
I'm sorry, Nicholas. Let me put some respect in the man's name.
No, I think
that's Dr. Nick, ain't it?
No, I'm not a doctor. But no, I think you're making some valid points. Points have been made. I think we shouldn't negate time. Resilience is also something that can be built over time, as well as situations that they're involved in.
So can triflingness.
Tell me again.
So can being trifling. Time helps foster that too.
Okay. So can be in trifling.
Yeah. Not doing it. I mean, you can.
I mean, you could have that in every situation, though. Like even in regards to your scenario with the person who is supposed to do well because they're in this 2-family household, and then dad is supposed to be this machismo guy, and mom's supposed to just feminize her son. That doesn't necessarily mean that this person is going to come out and be this dominant alpha person that's going to be the successful business person. Not at all.
That's true. No. I agree with you.
You can make some of the wimpiest people in the world in that scenario because they're coddled in every which way, or sometimes coddling can actually help because it creates an environment where they feel confident in themselves.
Not for no boy.
I've seen it both ways, though, right? I definitely think there can be some things, right? You need a coach. A coach can help in different ways, right? I think I think there's a time and a place. I think there needs to be a little bit of balance, right? I agree with that. But I do think that time can also help in terms of building resilience. I don't think it's necessarily one of these things where if you just work somebody, that's going to automatically make them a man. Or
that's true. No, I agree with you on that. I agree with you 1,000% on that.
You can end up breaking them too.
Sufficient human being
like that. Slave, right?
You definitely can break somebody.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then they come see me and they like, I just don't want to do nothing. Right? They're completely burnt out. And so I think in all actuality, right, you do have that balance. Trauma is it's an interesting thing. I think it's a trigger word, but because you don't just always have trauma. Sometimes you just have stress, right? I'm just stressed. And so I think trauma is just a word that's really popular. People like to say it because it's popular vernacular.
Like narcissists.
Or gaslighting, right? And so
gaslight, yep.
It's one of those things where it's like people like the trauma bond too. I think it's a common thing.
Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I
think we got to watch that. But no, I think a lot of people are stressed. I think stress is a very real thing. Stress can kill you. High blood pressure, high cholesterol. It can lead to just diabetes and all types of crazy stuff. It decreases your ability to focus and relax. And so I think it is important to relax, but you got to take care of business. I mean, and so I think that's where time comes in, because time sometimes allows you to take a step back, look, analyze and choose what character traits have been bothering your life and what character traits you want to take with you moving forward into the future, so you can be a self-sufficient individual, productive in society, pay your bills, help your family, help your community.
And I'm thinking one way to maybe sum it up too is like unaddressed stress equals trauma.
Oh, trauma. Here we go.
Is that a fair statement? Is that a fair statement? And the reason I said that is because you just listed some qualifiers around trauma. And like how we said, everything is not traumatic. It's like it's almost a buzzword now. And so my whole point was, but it's like if you let that stress, if something stresses you and it builds up to a point, then it becomes traumatic. Is that anywhere near accurate in your opinion?
I just want to point out that we're speaking to a therapist or a counselor who doesn't necessarily care for the trauma word. You have to agree that not everything is trauma.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If I let people diagnose themselves, you would be surprised what comes out. No, you have to assess. You definitely have to assess. I think that stress, compounded stress can lead to a traumatic situation or an unfortunate situation. I wouldn't necessarily just go straight traumatic situation. If you don't pay your bills because you're stressed, now you might end up in a situation where you're couch surfing or you're trying to figure things out. And that can lead to, I would say, even more stress, but I wouldn't necessarily label people with trauma. You got to be careful labeling folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That labeling thing, people start to use that as their identity. People have experienced trauma. Sometimes people will walk into a room and they'll say, "Hi, my name is Nick, and I've experienced," I'm using myself for an example or whatever, right? Like, okay, hi, my name is B, and I have experienced blah, 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 a lot of different things. They identify with their trauma. More so, but if you can remove that person from their trauma and put themselves in front of it, if you can allow them to build their self-worth, if you can allow them to understand that I am someone who experienced, this is a piece of my life, but this is not my entire life,
right, then
you can get some traction and then you can move forward. But you don't want someone to identify with the trauma solely. We can look through the past until you are blue in the face. And some therapists will do that. That's the business model side of things. But if someone that's really trying to help you, we're going to look at the past because that's where we need to go. Your body does keep the score. I'm a firm believer in that. But I also acknowledge that eventually we have to reach a point where we have to say, what is stopping me from moving forward?
Right. And there is a difference between maybe a kid coming to a parent and saying, I'm going through this, I'm feeling like this, I'm feeling traumatized about this. And the response being, boy, ain't nothing wrong with you. Girl, ain't nothing wrong with you.
Especially in the Black community.
I
was waiting I thought Nick was going to respond.
No, you got a valid point. I think we got to create that space for balance, right? Like, you know, hey, get in that shower. You stink. You know, like,
Yeah.
But you know, I don't. You know, I just went outside for a little bit. Like to Razor's point, to all you all's point, like eventually you do need some. You have to parent them, and so even if you don't know all the things, maybe we are not our parents.
Yeah.
So let's say that too. We are our own setup. We can create our own rules in our own home, and so let's try to create an environment that's healthy. Hey, ain't nothing wrong with you. Go in there, go lay down.
Hey,
That's
Nick.
what you said. That's what needs to be said.
Hey, Nick,
Yeah.
I got a question for you. Something I was thinking about. Charles had said like probably about a month or two ago. We was talking about something. All right, let me try to bring it to Max's statement. And when she said, "Boy, ain't nothing wrong with you," how do you parent a child from two different lenses when you don't? Let's say the child listens to dad more, right? So every time mom has an objection to the way dad does something, the child is running to dad because that's who they resonate more with, or that's who protects them more, or whatever, right?
Correct.
But it is not helping foster them in the proper way. How do two parents, be them in the household or co-parenting in different households, come to that agreement where the child is not using them against each other to get what they want, or to not have to really do anything? Because we in our community, we have a lot of broken families and we have a lot of combined families. And as a barber, I saw a lot of people being used by the child. The child would tell me the truth and lie to each parent depending on the situation. And I saw it young on up. So by the time they realize what works for them, that's the type of relationships that they build. They find the young lady that they can use that then takes over for whatever parent was babying them. They find the job that they can get over on. They just not accountable for nothing. So how do you like kind of head that off? And I'm more old school. Like, tell them the truth, whatever that is. So and then build from then. But not everybody is built like that. Some people feel immediately attacked. So how do you find that? You're saying balance. I'm seeing a community overall that has children that ain't us, you know, in my opinion. And you would not want that child raising your grandchildren in the state that they are now. But if you never took the time to fix it, now you're looking at an adult who can kind of do their own thing. Where's the balance in that? Because now they have their own choices.
Yeah, no. Okay. So they have their own choices, but I think they also have a choice to be better. And so with education, with community, with school engagement, I mean, with all these different, ideally with an environment that's conducive for success, someone will achieve. And so it's like, you said a couple of different things, right? So we're talking about, the first thing I'll tackle was how do we parent from two different lenses? All right, so the first thing, parenting from two different lenses is a challenge. So first acknowledge that it is a challenge. So that's for the people who are experiencing that stress, so that you can sit in your car for 5 minutes, calm down before you go into the house and bring it all inside with you. When you first walk into the door, I want you to say 3 things you're grateful for. And when you leave that door, I want you to say 3 things you're grateful for. Right. And then that will create a level of stability in which you're not just bringing in that negative energy with you. Right. All right. Number 2 is the parents are the fulcrum of power. So fulcrum being the triangle on the seesaw. If the parents are equal, if the fulcrum is in the middle, then the seesaw will work correctly. There will be ups and there will be downs, but there will be a good ebb and flow. But if the fulcrum is shifted too far to the left, the seesaw isn't going to balance. If it's too far to the right, towards dad or towards mom, that seesaw isn't going to seesaw the way it needs to. And so, if you I say I don't know. I don't have the stats on it, but I would say 9 out of 10 times when you're doing a family assessment, if the parents aren't in a stable position, then you're going to get some chaos within the children because of there's no order in terms of like respect. The parents don't respect each other. The parents don't agree related to the objective of the child. So the correction styles might be different, but if the objective is, hey, let's make sure that homework is done, education is important. Let's not just focus on grades. Let's create a good person. I just want them to be a good person. I don't want their self-esteem to be based off of an A, B, or C, or a D. I want them to actually just be a good person. If they get a B or a C, but they still are neighborly, they look after their elders, they're respectful, they have a good work ethic, we can work with this. And so if the parents can agree upon that, let's start there on what our goal is for our child. And then we can focus on what are the next steps. How can we create an environment that's actually conducive for that success? If we're yelling back and forth, if dad is seeing mom disrespect him and vice versa, then the child is going to kind of manipulate that situation. Now, there's another thing that's kind of in here that you're putting in there, and that can almost be like a grieving process, especially when parents might divorce and separate and then remarry. So there can be a grieving process for that child. That child is trying to navigate what that looks like. They can be in denial. They can have all these different stages. They can be angry. They can be questioning. They can be sad. And so all of these things also come into play when you're blending a family, especially if there's like a recent divorce or there's a transition. How many adults don't like transition?
Yeah.
They implement a new rule. Everybody, I can't. I feel like that was the catchphrase last year. I had a lot of people use, I can't. They do it anyway. But they just, I can't themselves all the way through the 8-hour shift. And so children are going to do the same thing. They're going to have a little resistance. Some of that stuff is age appropriate, but it comes down to the parents being the fulcrum of power. Unless that fulcrum is in the middle and they have a understanding for what they're going to do. Now, and let's also be clear, raising kids is a challenge in itself.
No doubt.
They used to say, I prayed for you every day.
Hey, boy, I didn't think you were gonna make
it. And so I'm a firm believer that is still true. I think the best time to help a teenager is before they're a teenager. But I also believe that hopefully some of the things you instill stick with them and they're going to find their way. Sometimes you got to let them bump their own head, even though what they're doing is going to cause them to bump their own head. But you got to give them some space to do it so they can build confidence and also so they can gain some sort of understanding and discernment. And discernment is one of those things they don't necessarily teach in school. That's something that you have to instill in them. What's right, what's wrong, what's good behavior, what's not, what's manipulative, what's not, what's sneaking and stealing dollars. Like that's something that they have to learn and put in themselves. They're not going to get an A, B, C, D, E, F on that. They're going to get whatever life gives them if they don't develop that mindset for discernment. Just because someone is on social media and they got it popping on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, don't think that person just rolled out of bed and just came famous. That person put in work. That person wrote a proposal. That person put together a skit list. That person works. You don't just get in. And so it's hard to have that discernment if no one's kind of teaching them what happens on the back end.
Right. Hey, Nick, I want to bring attention to something that I believe you have mentioned every single time that you've been a guest on the show. You did it again today. And you talked about when a person is entering into what might be a challenging situation before doing so, that they list 3 things that they're grateful for. So it's almost like you do your therapy from a mindset of gratefulness Another person might hear that and say, okay, maybe just prayer before you deal with a challenging situation. And so I guess my question is, how does that kind of trick the brain or the emotions into being able to navigate a difficult situation more smoothly, so that, more successfully?
Yeah.
Or am I viewing that incorrectly?
No, you're doing a great job. You're amazing. You listened. I appreciate that. I feel like sometimes I don't know if I'm necessarily conveying the point, but you're spot on. It does trick the mind. It does create a space of gratitude and appreciation versus harboring some of those negative things. If we go outside right now, and let's say it's 5 of us, and one of us goes outside and says, "It's hot out here." How many people are going to agree?
Right.
How quick does one voice change the culture?
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing applies for ourselves. If one person goes outside and says it's hot out here, everybody be like, "Yeah, it is hot. Woo! I'm glad I got some ice water. This, I'm that, I'm this. Woo!" But if one person says out of the 5, if another person says it's actually not that bad, it feels pretty good today.
You right.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
You're right. You're right.
That one voice can change a room. And so I encourage people to be that voice for yourself sometimes. Remove yourself from the trauma. That one person said it's hot outside. Now everybody ready to trauma bond. Yeah, it is hot. Yeah, woo. Oh, they changing the rules again. They sending new emails, this and that. Be that one person to say, "Oh, we'll be all right."
Yeah. Hey, thank you for that.
Same thing as last time. And so that rule can also be applied to our everyday life.
Yep.
When you wake up in the morning, just be like, "Yo," for me, thank you God for this day. And so I think the momentum that we create by speaking life is so strong. It can really move a mountain, and it can change everyone around you. One voice can stop an army.
Yeah, perspective, right? Mindset. That's what's up. We are talking to Nicholas Wright Group Counseling's own. Like there's a pop culture thing going on right now that we want to touch on before we let you go, Nick. But we will get to it. But one of the things I wanted to address real quick though, that what I hear y'all saying is that like there's so much hereditary and like genetically to where like we don't even know why we think a certain way or operate a certain way. Right, like until a family member may be like, "Boy, you remind me of your great granddaddy." You know what I mean? You heard that?
Yeah.
Like so, there's things there, but then I think about even us culturally, it's sort of the same thing. And so, because when I hear us talking about, like our work ethics, right, and things of that sort, and like how much stress we can carry, handle through working and stuff like that. What brings it home for me that I see a lot of times is that like we operate, especially as people of the African diaspora, we operate like within a foreign system. And what I don't want people to do, and I would love you comment on anybody comment on it, is that like there's a saying, don't become what you once despised. Right. And like that happens so many times because we want to fit in, we want to be successful. And then we start taking on traits that we otherwise don't want to take on because we're like, but this is what you do. This is how you get a leg up. Yeah. This is how you make money. Right. And so then because I sit in these kind of conversations as well as like there's like these leadership of color circles and stuff, and it's safe spaces where people get to vent, like Black folk that are in like corporate spaces get to vent with each other, right? And it's like what you find is that, man, it's like you're stressed out every day just about living, right? Like we live in a system that's foreign. It tells us you got to act like this, you got to be like this to make it. So I just want you to comment on that. It's like just being faced with that is like living in a world that's juxtaposed to your nature and telling you like that you need to change even your spirituality in order to be successful in this world. How you balance that?
Yeah. I mean, there's societal norms,
Yeah.
and so I mean, your religious preference is on you, but I think you have to figure out what works based off of the different experiences that you've had. Whether it's, I mean, putting on clothes. I mean, for some people that's uncomfortable, right? But we have societal norms. We have these things in place that we have to kind of follow in order to reach the goals that we want to obtain. And so I think that balance is allowing yourself space to relax. Adults need recess, contrary to belief, right? You remember recess, 30 minutes outside?
Yeah. A nap too. I want recess and a nap.
It's so important that we as adults take 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Give yourself 30 minutes. When the last time you gave yourself an unapologetic 30 minutes to just sit and just exist? It's actually really helpful for critical thinking as well. It just helps with creativity. It helps you just your overall well-being, just getting that rest unapologetically. I mean, there's a lot of choices you have to make in life, and the choice is yours. Ideally, you have a strong circle. I'm a firm believer, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And so, you know, that comes with me into practice. And so I encourage people to kind of, sometimes you got to look at the people around you and be like, hey, I need to get some new friends. This ain't it. I'm trying to change them, but they changing me more. And so sometimes you got to adjust, you got to pivot until you can love them from afar, right? You're still a good friend. Just because I don't see you every day doesn't mean I don't love you.
And it's the workplace too. It's like if you in meetings and people talking over each other, everybody got to be right and stuff like that. And then you sitting there like, man, we could communicate a lot better. But the only way I'm gonna get my point across if I start demeaning my coworker, my colleague, because that's how people become the boss. Because you gotta be, you know what I mean? You gotta have that level of bravado. You know what I mean?
Corporate game.
That's the game. Like that's what I'm saying, though, Nick. We gotta change the game. We gotta create our own game.
Yeah, it's true. But I mean, some of these systems are in place, and some of these games have fed a lot of people and done a lot for them. So I'm not going to knock anyone that's navigating that system 100%, but I would kind of encourage, you know, think about your ethics and who you are as a person. What do you stand for? And how does that kind of resonate with your overall picture and what you want to do and who you want to be known for? When you die, they're not going to be like, hey, that was, you know, they're not going to know you as VP such and such. They're going to know you as, you know, Tony Gonzalez. Like, who is Tony? You know, they're going to know you as Michelle Obama. And they're going to put some respect on Michelle's name because ethically she's solid. Like, she's a good person. And so I think, you know, what do you want to be known for? What do you want people to remember you for? Stepping on everybody's toes to get to the top? You know, that's on you.
We are talking to Nicholas, right? And Nicholas, so we got to touch on this, bro, before we let you go. And we appreciate you sharing some of your Sunday afternoon with us. Much love to you for that. But you know, one thing that everybody's talking about, and unfortunately, social media gets like way bonkers, way out of control. When we talk about caring about how what people think about each other and how people feel, right? It's like when we look at sort of the top news story, pop culture story right now that it seems like our people are discussing. We're talking about these allegations, with Sean Diddy Combs, right? And like we talked about Ye before, we're gonna leave Ye alone today. Ain't nothing else we can say about Ye. We got to do that. But here's the thing though, like you as a professional, right? And when we try to make sense of this, it's like, what can you share when it comes to the mental impact of whether it's abuse and things like that? Because it seems like a popular argument right now that I think is important for people to have, if we can have it, in a very and I guess like an educated manner, where we come into a conclusion. Is just that is like, what is that mental impact of when someone's decisions are no longer their own? Like to when they say, I said that, but I was under an external control and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because some people find it hard to believe, like that somebody can be impacted mentally or abused mentally to that extent.
Abuse is wild. It's it's kind of a scary thing. I mean, there were slaves that were free that didn't want to leave the plantation, right? Like not slavery, but just abuse in general. The long-term effects, the immediate effects, it's kind of scary. And what it can do to someone's overall just ability to function. Um, and so, I mean, we have the Stockholm syndrome, right? A lot of people know that word, and how you sometimes care for your abuser, or you're empathetic or even sympathetic to that person, and you humanize it. But I think the part that separates this so much is she couldn't leave. She tried to, blew up Kid Cudi's car. She tried to leave a couple of times, and different things occurred. But Diddy's in trouble. It's in trouble. Yeah, I don't really know what level of abuse occurred.
Right.
I haven't really been following the trials 100%. But I do know that you can grow from this. She can change. She can experience a better life. I think it starts from building yourself. And so rebuilding that sense of self, prioritize safety and that stability, seeking that professional help, setting healthy boundaries, and just practicing some self-compassion, using grounding techniques, reconnect with your body. Those are going to be some of the steps that she's going to have to take to experience that wholeness that she's looking for.
And let's start being more proactive too, because you hear the stories too on how things like this are just perpetuated from I'm gonna say it again, Nick, PTSD. I'm just gonna say T. I ain't gonna say the word this time. But we hear that, like whether you got Kanye coming out talking about stuff happened with him and his cousin. We hear about R. Kelly saying that he was sexually abused as a child, and then so those stories. So I want us to take a stand on being more proactive instead of us having to come back now and be like, oh, here's how you can get out of that and come out of that. Like let's stop perpetuating a narrative that is just, like I said, perpetuating
just a healthy relationship
abuse,
component,
like the generational abuse that happens.
Yeah, not healthy relationships. Some people don't know what it looks like though, and so I think it's helpful to know at least what you don't want. And so I think education is solid. Experiences, seeing healthy relationships, seeing people communicate. Confrontation happens in relationships, but it's like how we treat each other when we have opposing views is the most important part. It's okay to say it's hot and the other person say it's cold, but how do we treat each other? When we have opposing views? Does it get physical? Does it get domestic? Do we start cursing? That's where the issue is.
Nick, where I think I'm listening to people, because I try not to chime in when they start talking about these type of issues too often, right? Because I don't understand them. I wasn't abused. I wasn't a part of improper things as a youth, and you know what I'm saying? So I try not to say nothing. But what I do recognize is that some people get involved with things that they then decide that they don't want to do them anymore. And the easiest way is to scream victim. I've seen that happen. I've seen people have to deal with court systems because of it, when in actuality, the relationship should have never turned into what it turned into. And a person does have a right to say that I don't want to play this game no more. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is there are people that got involved with things that then the easiest way out to save their image or whatever, to get people to rally around them, is to pull the victim card. Now, I think it harms the people that truly were victims.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I was a child. Somebody came into my room middle of the night. All of a sudden, I'm dating them. But they, those people is different than somebody 13 getting in the car with an 18-year-old or older and going and do stuff, and then they turn older and then don't want to do it no more, and then say this has been going on for this time, which is true. But what also is true that even though you were younger, you were a willing participant. And you can say that and say, look, I was a willing participant because I thought this is what I want. But you don't hear that part of it. And then people rally around the victim part. And then that makes other people that are part of it say, oh, no, she was going along with it the whole time. I see that with Cassie now. Like even you named Kid Cudi, you named the husband, but she was going back to Diddy. And then we're saying she has Stockholm syndrome or her mind was messed up or she like at a point, when does a person, if the body keeps score, like you said, and they're feeling their sin, so to speak, when do they take accountability for that? I'm not saying she's wrong. Please don't nobody think I'm speaking in support of Diddy. I'm just saying I'm looking for the true answer. Like, how do you vet when somebody's just trying to get out of their circumstances or when somebody truly is messed up mentally?
Yeah, I think she takes accountability every day when she wakes up and she knows that she was a part of these things. And so
that's what Terrence Howard said.
As a whistleblower, I mean, you take accountability, right? Like,
yeah.
And so,
but she took money. That's what I'm saying. And that's the only thing. If she hadn't took the money, it kind of burned me up that people don't bring up, like when we was talking about the basketball player and we start talking about the people and the women and the money, that part kind of gets underneath my skin, because if we're truly looking for the answer, we need to lay it all out on the table. But we tend to not want to bring up certain aspects because it looks damaging against the victim, not so-called victim, but the victim. So I don't like.
I think the part that you're kind of getting stuck on is the idea that she stayed.
No. I get stuck on she kept going back.
She also tried to get away. And then she also came to where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
She did get away. That's how we got to where we are. She told. And so
she blackmailed.
I think that's where we are. And so I think with that being, I think it's hard for us to forget that, like, she did tell. She did try to get away multiple times. Now, there were some times she did come back. Okay. Some could even say that's Stockholm syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She was in a position where she couldn't move the way she wanted to move. And manipulation isn't just like the physical piece. I think a lot of times they talk about the acts, but there's financial manipulation all the time, right? And so all of these things, when you paint the whole picture, I think that's what kind of makes it that grooming piece.
Gotcha.
Is that I think I would be interested to hear a lawyer's perspective on this, because we're really blurring the lines of legal as well and what those terminologies look like. But I think the biggest thing is, like, she did tell. She got away and she told. She was abused. She went back. She was in a precarious situation. Videotapes. If you don't do this, I'm gonna leak your tape. If you don't do that, here's some money. Money don't fix everything. I think sometimes Diddy gonna have to hold that one.
Yeah. He gonna go to jail for a long time.
This isn't like, if he get away, I don't think people aren't gonna feel the same way they felt about OJ.
Money and power.
True. I'm with you on that one. Yep.
Yeah, no, it is very interesting because I've heard both sides. I have. I'm not going to act like this is my first time hearing a perspective like yours. I mean, this is the talk right now, right? Some people are like, well, was I groomed as a kid because I grew up in the inner city and we had a big homie that had us doing wild stuff? And if I was in the back of his car and they robbed a bank, I would still have to do the same amount of time. Right. I couldn't say, hey, I was groomed. And so it is a very interesting discussion that's going on. Is the grooming related to just when it's sexual, or is it also grooming when a child does all these, different things for the community, for a negative, for whoever, for somebody that has them doing these negative things. And so it is a wild discussion that's going on right now. But I'm leaning towards the side of, like, she did want to get away. she tried. She did come back, but he also threatened to sell her tapes and her image and all these things. And trauma is one of those things where it'll mess up your entire existence, your entire being.
I want to discern between consenting adults and children too, because I've heard us like mention both. Like, but in my opinion, like I'm never gonna blame a child the same way that I'm gonna blame a consenting adult.
No doubt.
Because you know, children underdeveloped brains and all that kind of stuff. It's like, nah, the adult is wrong 100% of the time in my opinion. And that's
And Cassie was what, 19 though when it started?
I mean, she was young.
She was an adult.
Like, but but still, I mean, like, but that kind of hurts his case even more, right?
No. No. Prefrontal cortex fully developed 21. Your future thinking. And so 20s are so important. Like so much happens in 20 developmental milestones. Like 18, 19, like it's tough. I wouldn't say that she was just like this. You think you grown, and you heard that one before. You ever heard that one? That was a Black Households one-liner. You think you grown, but it takes time. It takes time to experience life sometimes for a lot of people. And I mean, I can only imagine the ways of the music industry and how.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that.
Different ways that goes. You go. You don't ask too many questions because you don't want to go in those doors. But
what's that Terrence Howard?
I'm listening to what you're saying about the way the brain develops, and I know we got to go, but wouldn't it be nice if those things were taken into consideration when we talk about encounters with police officers by individuals who are within that age range, or just had a conversation with someone, encounters with social services when a mother may not make the best decision for her children, or so on and so forth. I mean, the list keeps going.
Oh, that's good.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's
spot
real
on,
good.
Ms. Max.
I think that's the next episode. We need to get a lawyer.
Next episode.
Yeah, that's good.
None other than Nick Wright of Wright Group Counseling. So, Nick, go ahead and let the folks know how to reach him. And like you said, you worldwide. It don't matter where you located. You can reach the people.
So we're Virginia based, 100% virtual. WGC today, but I encourage you to check out cvccn.org as well, just to connect with a Black therapist. My voice, finding a good therapist is like finding a good pair of jeans. Sometimes you got to try a couple pair on before you find the one that just fits for you.
You said cvccn.org?
Central Virginia Clinicians of Color Network. So
I got you.
cvccn.org. I really want to just say thank you all. Maxine, Razor, Charles, it's always a pleasure to be on your show, and I don't take it for granted. And I just want to say thank you.
We appreciate you,
brother. We gotta get together and have some more wings, man.
Hey, keep doing the good work. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you, Nick. We appreciate you. All right, family, we got to go. We're over time, but it was well worth it. Definitely know that you were enlightened today. I mean, you couldn't have been listening if you didn't learn something from today's show. And so we appreciate you. Visit our social media pages, replay these interviews, get as much as you can out of them, help to increase the quality of your life. I'm going to say bless your life, and I don't want to sound like I'm preaching to you. So.
Amen. Hey, it's Sunday. I'll take it.
Right.
He said amen.
Yeah, but take care, okay?
All right. Thank you all. Have a great day.